Morning, Renee.
Good morning, Magic.
How are you doing today?
Great. It's finally getting a little bit cooler in Florida. So it is a beautiful 70 degrees. It's perfect. It's been that way for like a week, which is awesome. Yeah.
What is cooler for you is cold for me. I had
Poor thing.
3 degrees today in the morning.
Oof.
Believe it or not, I jump in a car, and I don't know about your car, but my car, if it goes below 3 degrees,
Uh-huh.
that's typically a challenge because you need to be careful about slippery roads.
Uh-huh.
So you get this kind of a ping, and I was like, what's wrong with the car? It's 3 degrees, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to change the tires to the winter tires.
Oh,
We have
yeah.
Andrea and Angelica already. Hey,
Yes, hello, ladies. And how
Andrea.
is Camano Island weather up in Washington State? It's got to be chilly by now. And I don't know where Angelica is, but I think
Angelica
you
is
know.
in Warsaw, so she's suffering from the
Oh,
same problems I
excellent.
do. Like cold weather. If you go running, you get a little bit cold. If you go, walking. Although the afternoon was perfect. I don't know, Angelica, if you went for a walk. I went for a walk in the afternoon. It was really, really nice, beautiful sunshine and a beautiful Polish autumn, Polish fall. I think I like it a lot.
Very nice.
So, Manuel has joined us as well.
Hola, Manuel. Hello. Excellent.
Hey, Manuel. Thanks for being here with us. I don't know. Angelica was last time was counting our attendance, so I
I
don't
know.
know.
She doesn't know it, but now she's become like our moderator. She doesn't know what she started.
So I'm wondering how many. Oh, 3 degrees, great autumn love it. Yes, yes, it's a fantastic weather. It's a fantastic weather. Come on, Angelica. How many people
Hola, Jose.
are in the call?
7. 7.
7 people
She was
already.
researching. Give her a second. Yeah.
Thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. So we have
Thank you.
Manuel, Angelica, Andrea, Jose Elias. Hey, so great to see you, Jose Elias. This is
Yes.
great.
Puerto Rico's got to be a beautiful 82 degrees. Perfect. Puerto Rico's always perfect. Well, in the summer it's a little hot, but yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining. We having a small chat just to give everybody a few minutes to be late, but on the other hand, we know that there's a couple of hundred people watching the video when it stays on LinkedIn. So we shouldn't probably extend too much the chit chat.
Yes.
So what we've prepared, just a reminder to everyone. Renee and I, we spoke last time about different leadership styles, and we were wondering which style is more managerial and which one is more leadership style, true leadership style. And I think at the end of this conversation, when I read the audience and when I read the thoughts from the audience, it was a question of who is the perfect leader. So what are the leadership how do we define a true leader, right, Renee?
Yeah.
So we prepared a couple of slides with the leadership qualities, and I think there are three dimensions of effective leadership that we have identified. The first one, Renee, core leadership qualities.
Yeah, and this really talks about your foundation and your preparation, right? By the way, perfection is unattainable. And the intent is to make sure that you're always striving to be better and improve. And the basis of that starts with you, because the only behavior that you control and the only responsibility 100% that you can manage is how you prepare, how self-aware you are, how you understand what your particular triggers or things that are going to be pitfalls in your particular day-to-day interactions with people are. Therefore, you should always, no matter how old you are, no matter how many years you've been in leadership, no matter if you started yesterday and you're 22 or you're 62 or everywhere in between, You should always be looking at how do you improve all of these bullets and more, right? I think that it's interesting. Most leaders that I interact with are very type A, and an area where they're constantly working to improve, and one that I'm constantly working to improve, is that active listening, right? Listening for understanding, not for responding. Listening to understand another person's point of view and how that might shape your own opinions about whether it's a decision or a particular problem you're trying to solve. So I don't know, Magic, which one of these core leadership qualities do you work on constantly?
I, I think I think you're 100% right. There is not 100% ideal person. You always need to strive to become better. Whether you're a religious person or not a religious person, you always should be trying to improve yourself. So I think I did like your segue into this, because you start with the self-awareness. So first of all, you need to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, and obviously uh, active listening helps you to discover what are your challenges, what are your challenges, but also what are your strengths. Because I subscribe to this maybe a little bit unpopular view that when you are building yourself, you shouldn't only address your weaknesses, but you also should build your strengths, like leverage your strengths and accelerate your strengths. So
Mhm.
obviously, if you are self-aware, if you understand your position, your person, if you listen very actively to people, you will be able to start, kind of improving yourself as a leader. Again, I think Renee said that before, and I said that before. Uh, it's not really true that the leaders are born. You might be a little bit more inclined to be a leader, but it is a hard work, and making mistakes, and learning from others, and about yourself. So if you are self-aware, if you know your weaknesses, if you listen very actively, then definitely you will be able to work on your topics. But I wouldn't dismiss the other three, right? I wouldn't dismiss the
Mhm.
emotional regulation with that. No.
Yeah, not at all. And that is part of being self. That's a dimension. If for anyone out there who struggles a little bit with self-awareness, I would recommend a couple of things. There is a great short little book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and it comes with a little self-test that scores you in the four dimensions of self-awareness, or the four dimensions of emotional intelligence, of which one is emotional regulation. And then what I love about the book, it not only gives you a score, but it basically gives you techniques to improve any area that you scored a little lower. And emotional regulation is one of those that is very important, particularly as you move up in leadership, because you're going to be in harder and harder situations. Adversity introduces a person to themselves is a saying that I love. I can't remember where I heard it, but when you're really under a lot of pressure, that is when your truest self comes out, which is when emotional regulation is very, very important. So I would recommend that. There's a couple of other free online, tests that you could take. But Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is comprehensive, and it gives you those techniques to work on. And always find a trusted buddy, a mirror. I remember Magic and I were at an event where he was, and I'm not going to go into the details because that's between Magic and I, but he's like, hey, could you kind of observe X, Y, and Z, and then come back to me and tell me where I could do better. And that is something that all of you should do. You should do that though with someone that you trust is going to give you the feedback with the intention to help you improve rather than to criticize you and knock you down, right? So you want to make sure that you find a trusted person to be your mirror and reflect back at you.
I think it's an excellent
Mhm.
advice, because really, again, working with others is it's one of the great ideas. And I see, Andrea said, you're not being an active listener, you're being a little bit guilty of that. Andrea,
Yeah.
my recommendation is find someone in your team you trust that will kick you under the table whenever you're
Yeah.
a listener. I'm sorry, but that's
Yeah.
one of the techniques that I use. I spoke with my team many times, and I'm not sure if they are here, but they would definitely confirm to you that I would go and openly say, because I trust them. I would say, look, this is where I have a problem, and please let me know when I'm screwing up. When I'm not really delivering to what I would like to deliver. Here is what I would like to improve. If you can build this kind of a group of people that will help you, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I also see Mahmoud join us, and
Yes.
I need to say,
Hmm.
Mahmoud, hello to him, because I haven't seen him for such a long time. He used to work with me in the growth markets organization at HP, and I'm so happy, Mahmoud, that you have joined, and I hope that you are doing well. And I can absolutely confirm you were one of the people that would always actively listen to others. That's one of the things that I always totally appreciated about you. So thanks for joining us and providing the comments as well. Yes, very, very important.
Before we go into the next one, Magic, and tied to Mahmoud's note on listening and Andrea's point on active listening, because I had to work on this quite a bit too. Um, I learned a little acronym. I was at the Women of the Channel event, and Women of the Channel is a great community for women that are in the industry. And Andrea has attended many of them. And I was listening to a speaker at one point that used this little acronym called WAIT, right? And it basically stands for why am I talking, right? And so it says constantly in your mind, right, when you really want to say something and you're trying to bite your tongue, kind of interrupt your thought process of wanting to interrupt that person, to make sure that you question, why do you need to be talking, right? So you can become a little, it's like a
This
little
is
trick.
cool. I didn't
Isn't
know
that
about
cool?
that.
Why am I talking?
I,
Yes.
I have a problem with that myself. So active listening and generally listening, we have it, and I observe this in my professional and also in personal life. We tend to, know what we want to say, and we just wait for the other person to finish. So you kind of throw your idea on the table. So you kind of stop really caring for what they say.
Mm-hmm.
That's something. That's something that I need to practice continuously. So this kind of a recommendation. Look, go to someone and be, like let them tell you when you haven't done a great job listening to others. I think it's super important. Helps you to improve over time. So wait, it's during the meeting, and then either somebody will kick you under the table when you talk too much,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe there is a signal that you can agree on that you
Yeah.
talk too much. Okay.
Yeah.
Or after the meeting, that's what Rene and I we've done, many times. Give me a feedback after the meeting, after the conversation, after some important discussions, whether there's something that I could have improved. And that's, if you have someone you trust, you should be taking advantage of this. Yeah.
And tied to that, Magic, again, before you go to the next one, it's credibility, right? um the reason that you and I make a really great team, even before we became such good, friends, um is we were both coming from a very credible space and we respected each other. Gosh, I think you were doing, it was when you were working for Tim, I think.
Mm-hmm. Repeat us.
Yes, Tim Peters. And you came to Guadalajara. I mean, we had worked before in other channel programs, but this is when we really started working together. And you really wanted to kind of improve the product selections for SMB and really make sure we had a good set of SKUs to sell and so forth and so on, and solutions to sell. But we already had such mutual respect for each other in our different areas of expertise. And then we built our foundation of trust, started from that mutual place of credibility. And that allowed us to kind of really just build this really great professional rapport that gave us and we're going to talk about this in a few slides later, that gave us the psychological safety with one another to really be, yes, honesty plus trust equals credibility. I love that little formula. Thank you, Mahmoud. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that.
And,
All right.
and it has to be consistent, Mahmoud, right?
Yeah.
It's not a one-time exercise. This is something that needs to be consistent actions. It has to be a non-stop exercise. You have to be honest all the time. Then you build the trust. Then you can be honest because you trust others, and that build on top of each other. And I think this is a great thing to have.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to be a great person by yourself. If you're a leader, you also need to take care of the team. So being a great person, an ideal person, credible and accountable and with emotional regulation and self-awareness, not enough. You need to have a people-centric approach. You need to take care of the team. Renee?
Yeah, and this is one of my favorite dimensions. I'm a highly relational leader, as we've learned through these different calls. And the thing that I'm always working on is making sure that everyone in the team feels included. So inclusivity, which is the fourth bullet down, right? Because sometimes if I focus too much on relationship building or empathy, that might seem unequitable, meaning that I might be perceived as being more empathetic to some people than others. That the people-centric approach can be tricky, because if you're not inclusive, then it turns into a negative, because then people think you have favorites in the team, and only those people that are the favorites of the boss are the ones that are getting the best projects or the best exposure. So you really need to, and this actually is something I learned when I had much larger teams, because it's easy to be inclusive in a way when you have a small team of 10 people or less. But as you start building organizations that are in the 50, 60, 70, 100, 300, 400, 500, it's like, how do you then transmit your empathy and people caring and relationship building, but in an inclusive manner, so everybody feels heard and that they're on the same level of playing, that they're not being ousted because you're not including them, and you get more diversity of people, so you have to be careful that you don't inadvertently. I remember this happened early on, where I said something to somebody around Merry Christmas, right? And you would think that Merry Christmas, she didn't say anything wrong, right? I think it was an all hands. I don't think, I know it was an all hands. I said Merry Christmas, and I got feedback that, hey, not everybody,
Everybody is Catholic.
Not everybody's Catholic and celebrates Christmas. And I also got a very interesting note for someone who was an atheist. And that person said, I don't believe in any of it. And I just think it's disrespectful to assume. And that was a very important lesson for me.
Yes, and people get sometimes upset about this, but I really believe in this inclusivity. It's an important factor, because being from the Eastern Europe, to be honest, I felt many times like the certain dimension, a certain thinking process. People say, white male is a white male is a white male. It's actually, there are a lot of dimensions of being a wine player
Yeah.
from the Eastern Europe, with a slightly different background and legacy and also understanding of English. Especially right now, my English is a little bit better, but especially when I started with the company and I moved to Munich and I had to operate in the English-speaking environment, that was a challenge. Many times not speaking, not participating in the conversation. I couldn't participate in the conversation because I was struggling. I was struggling with my language skills. Something really, really important. But we focus on inclusivity. I want to say, you need to be people-centric, meaning, so all those 5, 6 different points are super important. Relationship building. I want to say a lot of people mistake relationship building with really taking care of people, like really having a genuine interest in your team. What was very annoying for me is when I had leaders that were not really interested. So a great example, asking me for my birthday, right? And then making this kind of a very lame effort of sending me best wishes on my birthday that were extremely automated and not really genuine. Okay, I felt this is a little bit of a difficult thing to accept for me. How can you build a relationship if the only thing that you do is wish me a happy birthday, and you do it in a very standardized way, and I know it's just a message that you're gonna send to each and every person, and it doesn't have any personal touch really. So it's not a happy birthday because you really wish me happy birthday, but it's a happy birthday because you have this reminder in your calendar, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think this relationship building has to be genuine. Empathy. I'm not sure if to be honest, if I'm a very empathetic person. That's one thing that I'm constantly struggling with, to really feel the others. Okay, I noticed it many times that I have a blind spot over there, and this is again when I reached out to other people in my organization. I said, well, I might not notice things. I might not notice certain feelings in the organization. I might not understand what's going on. Can you, and I would find this person in the organization that had this kind of a capability. And I would say to this person, look, you need to tell me. You need to tell me every now and then, kick me under the table or take me on the side and tell me, look, this is where there's a problem. There's a problem. You are not feeling the room because there is this and this challenge that is going on. You need to be aware of this and that. So that's an important dimension, I think.
Yeah, you remind me of something. I had a great coach once that as you again work in a more global environment, things like social cues, body language, even some of the phrases that are spoken, they might have meaning in one context, but in another context they don't. So people cannot relate, and not being able to relate prevents them from being able to empathize. And what the coach really stressed for me was how to be really clear in my communication, how to be very clear, but in a very simplistic manner that would be equitable across any cultural context, and also asking for clarification or asking better questions of the person, or have the person ask better questions instead of asking why questions. Ask how questions, or use the phrase "tell me more," because to your point, as a non-natural English speaker, and even though I'm not either, but I was raised very adjacent to the American culture, so I can pick up on certain references, but someone maybe from Europe can't pick up on them. And it's important because then if we are not aware of these things, we prevent ourselves from being empathetic, building a good relationship, or even being inclusive. All right. Psychological safety, new term to me. What do you mean? Give me a practical example. You want to start?
Mahmoud, the way I understand psychological safety is you need to create an environment where people are not afraid to be different, to have a different opinion, to speak up, to share ideas. They don't feel like there is a risk if they say something they're going to be taken down, or if they do some, and that comes with the empowering of the team. If people do something that is a little bit out of hand, that they're going to be reprimanded, like either in front of everybody else or in the, so that is for me a psychological safety. You are feeling okay with being different, having a different opinion, and then the best thing is you speak up, you share ideas. That's super important dimension.
Yeah, and again, it's a place where people just don't feel that they will get ostracized or fear any kind of retribution because they're expressing a different point of view. Even if you're in the power dynamic, if you're in a higher power dynamic position. So that's important, and it's important to understand that your title sometimes puts you in a power position just because you have that title, right? And you have to go an extra mile to make people feel safe.
Yeah, so a good practical example how to deal with that I would use, okay, is you shouldn't be afraid of showing your weak spots or where you have made mistakes. So I don't think that you should make everybody feel, especially if you are speaking from a position of power, you should feel like everybody has to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way of showing that not everybody has to be right is to be wrong from time to time, or to admit that you've been wrong from time to time. And that shows people that being wrong, but taking a risk to be wrong, is better to take a risk to be wrong than not take the risk. And that's one of the things that I always said to my team and also to my kids.
Yeah.
I'd rather you make the wrong decision than no decision at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you make a decision, then we are moving forward. And sometimes if there is a problem, if sometimes there is a problem, we can together get out of this decision. So I'm always having your back. I'm behind you,
Mm-hmm.
supporting you and working with you. So go ahead and make your decision. If it's a bad decision, we're going to figure out how to get out of the problem. And at the end of the day, the question is, how often do you make mistakes and how often do you make the right decisions? And you just need to make sure that there is a balance, but you're not going to be ideal.
Yeah. Well, and it's important too that the team sees this treatment being that way with everyone, right? If let's say that you're meeting with someone from another department and you disagree, this is very common in sales versus when they're interacting with finance or when they're interacting with marketing, and there tends to be a lot of back and forth around who did what or who didn't come to the table prepared. And if you start tearing other people down, your team sees that, right? And if that's your technique and your approach, and they're saying, she did it to them, when will she do it to me? So be careful, because it's not always how you treat that individual person or the people inside your team. You have to make sure that you are setting a good example and providing an environment where they can be discord that's productive, right? There's
and I want to say we have a I see that there are some friends from Poland here joining me.
Yes.
So there is an expression in Polish which is pięknie się różnić, which means a beautiful disagreement. That I think that's the best translation. If Kasia and Angelica, if you know better translation, let me know. But I think it's a beautiful disagreement, or a kind disagreement. It's not wrong, and I don't make a mistake. When thinking about this kind of a situation, it's okay to have a different opinion. That's the essence of it.
Uh-huh.
It's okay. You need to make sure that people understand it's okay to have different opinions.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you cannot be aggressive about your opinion. You cannot dismiss other people because they have a different opinion. That's, I think, one of the that's one of the dimensions. Okay, Kasia agrees with me. Pięknie się różnić. Beautiful disagreement. Okay, so I think this is one of the dimensions. And Craig, thanks for joining us again.
Yes.
What did you say? If I'm willing to tell someone else to learn from their mistakes, I need to do the same to myself, and that starts with recognizing that I've made a mistake. Exactly my point, right? Exactly my point.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I also like the advice from Jose, right? Congratulate in public and then bring attention to things in private. That is a great technique. And I think Craig also had a couple of recommendations. I'll go through them in a second. But yeah, absolutely, right. If you have constructive criticism, because again, we go back to we want constructive feedback, actionable feedback. Do that in private rather than trying to do that in a public space that might humiliate the person, because even though you may not intend to humiliate them, they might feel humiliated or embarrassed. So give them the respect to do that one-on-one, in a setting that's not as public. Okay, a couple of things here that Craig put.
I want
go
to
ahead.
agree here with Jose Elias.
Mhm.
It's equally important. It's equally important to kind of bring the challenges to the attention in private. But many times you have this kind of a situation when people get out of the way to do something good and they are not being recognized.
Mhm.
That's also a big mistake and a big problem, and if you want to create this inclusive environment and psychological safety and empower people, because we didn't talk about the empowerment, which is one of my favorite things, really. You need to recognize when people do a good job, because that will create the role models, for the activities, but also people that have done something really good and haven't been recognized, they might actually treat it as a punishment. And that's I think people don't appreciate the fact that if you really got out of your way and you were trying to do your best, and you deliver something and you are not being recognized in front of everybody else, but maybe somebody else is, then you are really kind of punishing people, and that's something really, really, really difficult. I had a boss once, Chuck Smith.
Yes, I remember Chuck.
Remember Chuck? Great guy, absolutely fantastic. Chuck told me once, Magic, as a manager, your role is to know what people are good at and then tell them. And then tell them what they are good at. But you need to know, you need to really take ownership and then try to understand what are people good at, what your team, each and every individual, what are the strengths, and you need to go back. It's your job to go back and tell them that they are good at it, because they need to know. Remember Chuck Andrea? I think he works now for IBM. It's a fantastic boss, and I really also I had quite a few fantastic bosses at HP. I need to say that.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's a couple of other things I want to highlight, right, Magic? In terms of it's one we haven't spoken about too much in general as we've been getting together weekly, is the focus on well-being, and I think this is something that was brought much more to the surface during and after COVID. There was always a big separation between work life and family life. And COVID blurred those lines completely, right? Because we were in each other's homes now as for a long period of time. For those of you, you can Google it and correct me, but I believe it's 42 days to create a new habit. But if you guys want to double check my stats, go ahead. And I don't mind being wrong. um, but COVID lasted for 2 years, right? So it lasted well beyond creating at the time that is designated to create a new habit and a new routine. And and we began to see another side of people. We began to see people in situations that we normally would not at work. And I think that it's interesting. I was thinking about this yesterday. Oh, sorry for the sirens. As I was preparing for this talk, when I had my daughter, I only have one child and that I naturally birthed, and I went through postpartum depression. I was back at work 6 weeks after I gave birth, which is very quick. And I was reflecting on the fact that um, I struggled for over 9, 10 months. And I could not bring that to work. I remember that time, and I was reflecting on, gosh, what I would have given to have some of the parental leaves that are now common in the US of just more time, right? And it would have done me a world of good, but I couldn't bring that to work. And I was so busy trying to keep myself together, but also under this pressure of having to perform. And now I think that one of the good things post COVID is that we've highlighted and it's come to the surface that people are going through a lot of different things and a lot of different stressors, and it's very hard for them to separate that from work. Therefore, if their performance suffers, it might be not because they're bad people and they want to do a bad job. It might be because they're going through something very difficult at home. So
I see
that's about it.
well-being
Yeah.
from also from another dimension,
Hmm.
Renee. I see also, so it's important, to invest in the well-being of a team. It's important to understand, their work-life balance and etc. But I will always go back to this, kind of what you mentioned, like I think last week or the week before. You are the beacon for the team.
Hmm.
If you don't take care of your well-being, of your work-life balance, don't expect that people will do by themselves. I mean, if you are sending emails on Saturday and Sunday, if you during vacation, if you keep on answering emails and sending emails and are working, even though it's your vacation time, this is setting a certain role model for everybody in the team. People feel like they are expected to work when they are on vacation. People feel like they are expected to respond on Saturday and Sunday when you send them emails. And equally important is when your team is on vacation, if you send them emails, they will be feeling like they will feel like they need to respond to you. So if you want to really take care of your team, of your organization, first of all, make sure that your policy is, and it was always my policy, when I go on vacation, I go on vacation. Yes, you can reach out to me whenever there is a problem, significant one, but please, please, please try to make my vacation a rest from work, because I don't want to answer emails. I don't want to read my emails during my vacation. I don't want to answer emails. And let's make sure that we kind of divide and conquer and empower you so you can take decisions on my behalf, so I can really have some rest.
Hmm.
I did it for myself. Yes, of course, I was very egoistic about it. But I also thought, if I'm not doing it, how can people that work for me are going to do it by themselves if I'm not leading by example, if I'm not doing it to myself, right? Same story about any and in sports, we have this global wellness challenge on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm,
If you're
mm-hmm.
not participating, if you're not showing how many steps you do a day, and if you're not showing how many, this extra, if you're not doing an extra mile in creating the competition, don't expect people to participate in those activities and be there. So you need to be the example for the well-being if you want your team to to be well. I guess.
Well, this is another one where cultural differences and sensitivities kind of come into the picture, right? I remember when my first global role, and I was in the first global project that I was working on, and gosh, in Europe, right? Nothing gets done in August because everyone's on vacation. And at first I was horrified as an American, right? Or working in this very American culture where you take a week or two and it's like, oh my God. And the first time that, I was working with, in this case, it was a French team. And boy, they really didn't check and they went on vacation, right? And my initial instinct was to say, was to start questioning their work ethic and their dedication to the corporation and to the project and ta ta ta. I was very young, so apologies, right? I'm not that way anymore. But um it's very interesting how the dynamics change and how we need to make sure that we're constantly, again, learning as leaders and suspending judgment of other people's cultures, other people's you know kind of definition and
I know this
boundaries.
very well. I had to
Hmm.
explain so many times to my US bosses why vacation, it's vacation, in Europe,
Hmm.
and why is it a little bit longer than in the US, and people, have to take vacation because I remember a situation when one of my employees in Poland didn't take vacation. If your employees don't take vacation in Poland, you are personally responsible as a manager, and the government can fine you, not the company. You're going to be fined with money if you are not pushing your employees to take vacation in time. I think this is very, very, very important. And I think, Craig, I totally agree
Yeah,
with you.
me too.
I think Europe gets it right.
Yeah.
Actually, Europe gets a lot of things right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yes, I agree wholeheartedly on the vacation, on parental leave. And this is where, the US policy is very behind. And
yes.
hopefully, that's something that will change in the future. All right.
Actually, Craig, I actually did it on purpose many times. I took vacation in Dolomites or locations where you cannot be reached.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because
yeah.
I want to prove the point, it's no point in calling me. I'm
Hmm.
gonna log in once a day in the evening when I'm sitting in a hotel, when I have an access, and check my, not even an email, but some kind of a communicator or some kind of a, something that we have agreed with my team, how they are going to communicate with me if there is an emergency. Okay. But I've done it on purpose. I would go hike. Maybe that's why one of the reasons why I like hiking so much.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Last thing, last slide on our presentation today.
On our
So
three
first of all,
dimensions. Yes.
3 dimensions. Dimension number one:
You.
invest in yourself, self-awareness, try to improve yourself as a person. Okay. The dimension number two: people-centric approach, make sure that you really take care of your organization of your team, but you have to deliver the results.
Hmm.
I mean, there's no point in being caring for people and taking care of yourself if there are no results at the end of the day. Your organization, your team is going to suffer. You're
Hmm.
going to suffer, and you're going to be taken out.
Hmm.
Because if there is a performance issue, you're going to be taken out. So I think there are a couple of dimensions that you need to think about when you want to be a strong leader. And I don't know, Renee, if you have any favorite ones.
Gosh, yes, for me, conflict resolution is a favorite. And I I do have a bias for it because so you can thank my Puerto Ricanness and my Latin heritage. But I also had to learn to be very careful with, sometimes I can be a little too direct, right? But I do believe that, again, constructive conflict is important, right? It's important to be able to debate without getting wrapped up, particularly in a work in my environment, but even in personal relationships, right? You should be open, and there should be enough trust and psychological safety. Like, if all of the foundational things have been done, and the different elements that we've just spoken about exist, have a foundation in your organization, you will be able to have some conflict, some difficult conversations around conflict, to be able to resolve it. Very often in sales, this is the eternal thing, right? In terms of the pipeline, this was the daily conflict, right? um, the sales reps don't like to put, in many cases, the correct status of their sales stage in the pipeline, because they don't want to have all sorts of people's eyes on it, and people questioning them and taking time away from their activities to explain exactly where things are. But it becomes a problem if it's a small company. That's fine. You could, you could probably, it wouldn't even exist, because it's a few people that know exactly what's happening. But as you get into larger and larger organizations, you need the transparency, which is the bullet right above, to make sure that everything that has to do with delivering that particular deal or set of deals is being done, not because people don't trust you and whatnot. It's just because it's a big machine, right? So there's a lot of pieces and parts moving. But conflict resolution is one of my favorites. I teach it. There's actually also something called the Johari window, which is it talks about, another psychometric test. As you can tell, I love them, but it gives you insight on your
You
conflict
should you
resolution
should test me
style.
on some of those tests. Maybe in one of the
I
next
should. I
meetings,
should.
you should
Yes,
put some of the tests on me and on the rest of the audience, Renee,
that
because you
would be
always have
fun.
those kind of ideas, and I want to know
Yes,
more about myself. You know.
yes. I would love that. If anyone wants to be a participant in those, and you're not afraid to share that level of transparency with the audience, I would be happy to. But yeah, conflict resolution is important for you to understand how you handle it, and then have the emotional intelligence to have a calm, difficult conversation around the results that you need, right? In this particular example is a clean pipeline, so that we can have more predictability and order linearity in whatever process we're doing. But it's important, right? That you can have that difficult conversation without being accusatory. Andrea is volunteering.
Voting for me being dissected. Okay.
Yes, she's volunteering. Okay, what about you? Do you have a favorite on one of these?
On those six, I think results oriented it's something that has to be for individual contributors and for the leaders alike. But I really like two things: the accountability for mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I understand this is it has two dimensions. Be accountable for your own mistakes. So, and I think Craig is asking, in SMB, is it different in SMB? No, it's not. If you are a big leader, I think this is one of the big mistakes that people make as leaders. They always try to be perfect to their organization. They only want to show the perfect face. And I think people need to show a humble face every now and then. And they need to, I don't know, again, Polish expression is to eat the frog. I don't know if there's an English
Ouch.
expression like that.
No, we don't eat the frogs.
You need to kind of eat your own tongue or whatever, like, I don't know, just go back and say, look, I've made a mistake. that was wrong. That was a wrong decision. I want to apologize, or I'm really sorry, or let's figure it out. Sometimes I think one of the great kind of a show of trust for the organization, for your team, is to go back and say, I've made a mistake. Can you guys help me to dig out of this problem? Okay, I need your help to fix that. How great a leader is that if he is able to go to his own team, his own organization, and say, and not being kind of a completely discarded, right? And say, I made a mistake. I need your help to get out of this problem. Right? I think it shows that somebody is a really true. If he can do that successfully, it's a great leader. And the second dimension of accountability for mistakes that I feel is super important is take the accountability for the team mistakes. The fact that somebody screwed up is not only their own fault, or it might be the circumstances that you created as a leader. You basically didn't set this person up for a success. I've seen it so many times. People are not being set up for success. They are being set up for failure, and then they are being told that they have not delivered. That's something that I think many leaders have to own, to the fact that the quota was set incorrectly. Maybe it was too high or not the right way. And you have to go and swallow your pride and go back and discuss it. So that, I think, it's the accountability for mistakes, the two dimensions of accountability for mistakes that I would definitely highlight. And the second, yes, it links back, Craig, to the authenticity, right? And vulnerability. If you are a great leader, if you build a trust with your team and the rapport and the relationship, that you can be vulnerable and they can be vulnerable. I mean, that's a teamwork. That's the best teamwork. And I think that would be if I could achieve every time something like that, I would be the best leader in the world, I think. And
hey, I love that Andrea found that or noted for us that there is a book called Eat That Frog. It's about getting stuff done that you don't like at the beginning of the day to get it over with.
Okay.
There you go. Good job, man.
It has a slightly different meaning in Polish. It means that there's something ugly that you created, or like you have to go over.
Yeah, but it's difficult. Basically, the frog is not good in any reference.
And the second one, that I really like, is the transparent communication. Again, I'm going to go back. Bias for action, results-oriented strategic mindset. This could be applied to the individual contributor. You need it even to be successful in business, generally speaking. But if you are individual contributor and you don't communicate with others, it could be okay, because your boss will come to you and will ask you eventually, how are you doing and what you have done, and you'll have to report back. And this is a good deal, right? But if, as a leader, you don't share with your team, you don't constantly communicate, especially when there is a difficult time, when there is when there is a crisis, or there's a big organizational change. And we've been, René, we've been through so many organizational changes and mergers and acquisitions and this kind of stuff. During this time, if there's no transparent communication and clarity and a constant over communication, when you make tough decisions, I mean, if you keep everything for yourself, how do you expect people to deliver on what you want them to deliver to, if you don't tell them what's needed to be done?
Yeah, and I think, honestly, I've had a little extra time on my hands lately, Magic. So I've been paying a lot of attention to things that are happening in the industry. And right now, I think we have a bit of a crisis in the technology space, because there is an enormous amount of layoffs across different tech industries for a lot of reasons. But what what the byproduct of that creates is a lack of psychological safety, not just for the people that are laid off, but for the people that are left behind. And there's a wave of insecurity and uncertainty that plagues the organization. And when the leaders that are making these decisions don't take the accountability to recognize that, right? They it's too ugly of a frog to eat or look at, right? So they look away, and then there's other symptoms that come out of that: lack of engagement, lack of performance, etc. Similarly, I was thinking about this when you were talking about the sales performance. You know, during COVID, there's no secret, there was a lot of supply chain shortages and a lot of issues in the entire ecosystem for things that everybody is very familiar with. Yet, when there was a lack of performance in certain segments or in certain areas, the finger was pointed at the sales organization. Sales isn't executing. Sales isn't selling. Well, sales has to have something to sell in order to sell it. Right? And that lack of accountability in the right spaces creates a cognitive dissonance between the different functions across the organization. And that fundamentally shakes the core of that psychological safety and of that. And that then makes people fear making mistakes, which ultimately chokes their bias for action, right? They rather hide in a corner and hope nobody sees them than kind of be visible. So lots of things are happening out there that I think we're entering an era of crisis in terms of employee engagement and in terms of um, people-centric type of leadership.
And Renee, maybe this is one of the topics that we should tackle as well. Now that you talk about it, because indeed there's a lot of layoffs and people, and people are losing their jobs. Maybe one of the topics that we should tackle in one of our next discussions is the redundant. I don't know how to call it, the redundancy process. How to do it respectfully. Like advice for the leaders, how to make sure that you don't hurt the people while you are hurting them. I mean, when you are letting people go, it's bad. But when you do it,
humanely,
there is a way to do it right.
Right,
And there is
exactly.
a way to do it wrong.
Correct.
And I've seen both ways. I've seen it's done both ways, and I would think, that if you do it the wrong way, it hurts both the employee but also the manager, because many times not every manager is like this kind of a heartless machine that doesn't feel any pain. So maybe that's one of the topics that we should look into as well. Yeah.
All right. Yes, and thank you. We have to go
too.
Yeah.
We at the end of the hour, so we need to drop. But let us know. Look, everyone, please reach out, privately if you have any further questions on all those topics. If you need an advice or mentorship or recommendation, just feel free to reach out to Renee or myself, and we are always happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you. And let us know what are the topics that we should tackle next. One of the things is, the tests, and it looks like Renee is going to bring something next time that we're gonna explore, and also the other one that we should be tackling is maybe the layoff process, how to do it right.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week. See you next week, I hope.
Thank you. Speak to you later. Bye.